Imagine holding a Roman coin from the year 200 AD, solid silver, heavy. You could buy a week's worth of grain with it. Now fast forward just 70 years. That same coin, almost worthless. The silver replaced with cheap metal and a thin coating. This wasn't just inflation. This was economic suicide. The Roman Empire, the greatest superpower the ancient world had ever seen, didn't fall to barbarians alone. It was destroyed from within by something far more insidious, the systematic destruction of its own money. Today, we're uncovering how currency manipulation, reckless government spending, and economic desperation brought Rome to its knees. And here's the unsettling part. The warning signs are eerily familiar. Let's go back to when Rome's money actually worked. In the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, Rome was at its peak. The denarius, Rome's silver coin, was the dollar of the ancient world. You could use it from Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria. It was trusted, stable, and backed by real silver content, about 95% pure. The economy thrived, trade flourished across an empire of 50 million people. Roman soldiers were paid in denarii. Merchants accumulated wealth. The middle class grew. Rome's monetary system was so successful that it facilitated one of history's first truly global economies. But this success came at a cost that nobody was paying attention to. The hidden problem. Rome had an expensive empire to run, legions to pay, roads to build, aqueducts to maintain, and here's where the trouble started. Rome had no central bank, no sophisticated understanding of economics, and no sustainable revenue system. Their solution? Conquest. For centuries, Rome funded itself through plunder. Every new territory meant gold and silver flowing into Roman treasuries. As long as Rome kept expanding, the money kept flowing. But what happens when you run out of places to conquer? By the mid-2nd century, Rome's expansion had essentially stopped. The empire had reached its natural borders. And that's when emperors faced an impossible choice, a choice that would doom them all. But first, we need to understand the weapon they chose to use. The year is 64 AD. Emperor Nero has a problem. Rome is expensive, tax collection is inefficient, and he's just burned down half the city. Accidentally or not, historians still debate Nero needed money. Fast. He couldn't raise taxes much higher without risking revolt. He couldn't cut military spending without risking invasion, so he did something clever, or so he thought. The first debasement, Nero reduced the silver content of the denarius from 95% to 90%. Just a 5% reduction. He pocketed the extra silver and minted more coins with it. Technically, he'd created money out of thin air. At first, nobody really noticed. The coins looked the same. They spent the same. The economy continued, but Nero had opened Pandora's box, the slippery slope. Each subsequent emperor faced the same pressures, and each one shaved a bit more silver off the denarius. Trajan, 98 to 117 AD, down to 87% silver. Just temporary, they said. Marcus Aurelius, 161 to 180 AD, down to 79% silver. Wars against Germanic tribes were expensive. Septimius Severus, 193 to 211 AD, down to 50% silver. The military needed a pay raise. Caracalla, 211 to 217 AD, created a new coin worth 2 denarii, but containing only 1.5 denarii worth of silver inflation by decree. Do you see the pattern? Each emperor kicked the problem down the road. Each one made it worse. Gresham's law in action. Here's where human behavior made everything worse. People aren't stupid. Romans began to notice that old coins, the ones with more silver, were more valuable than new coins. So what did they do? They hoarded the good coins and spent the bad ones. This is called Gresham's law. Bad money drives out good money. The highest quality silver disappeared from circulation, melted down or buried. The economy was left with increasingly worthless coins. But the worst was yet to come, because in the 3rd century AD, Rome would face a perfect storm. Civil war, plague, invasion, and an emperor who would make a decision so catastrophic that the Roman economy would never recover. His name was Gallienus, and he reduced the denarius to less than 5% silver. The year is 235 AD. For the next 50 years, Rome would have over 50 emperors. Most died violently. The empire fragmented. Plague swept through, and the money completely collapsed. The death of currency. By 260 AD, the denarius was basically worthless copper with a silver wash. Imagine trying to run an economy with monopoly money and you're getting close. The effects were immediate and devastating. Price inflation. Prices didn't just rise, they exploded. A measure of wheat that cost 6 denarii in 200 AD cost over 200 denarii by 270 AD. But even that doesn't capture it, because the denarii themselves were worthless. Trade collapse. Merchants stopped accepting Roman coins. They demanded payment in goods, or in old coins with real silver, or in foreign currency. The sophisticated monetary economy reverted to barter. Tax collection failure. The government couldn't collect taxes in worthless currency. They started demanding taxes in kind, actual grain, actual goods. This required a massive, inefficient bureaucracy. Military crisis. Roman soldiers were being paid in worthless coins. Would you risk your life for currency that couldn't buy bread? Many soldiers deserted. Others looted the very provinces they were supposed to protect. The price edict of Diocletian. By 301 AD, Emperor Diocletian was desperate. Prices were out of control. His solution? Simply decree that they should be lower. He issued the edict on maximum prices, setting legal maximum prices for over 1,000 goods and services. The penalty for charging more? Death. Did it work? Of course not. You can't fix an economic catastrophe with a decree. Merchants simply stopped selling goods at the legal prices. Black markets flourished. The economy went further underground. Diocletian was treating the symptoms, not the disease. The disease was the currency itself. So if debasing the currency was destroying Rome, why didn't they just stop? Why didn't they restore the denarius to its original silver content? The answer reveals why monetary collapse is so hard to escape and why it's happened again and again throughout history. Here's the cruel trap that Rome and every empire that has debased its currency falls into. Why they couldn't stop. Once you start debasing currency, stopping becomes almost impossible. Here's why. 1. Debt in devalued currency. The government had massive debts. Those debts were denominated in denarii. If they restored the currency to full silver content, their debt burden would effectively multiply. They'd be instantly bankrupt. 2. Government size. Rome's government had grown enormous, massive bureaucracy, standing armies across the empire, subsidized grain for Rome's population. All of this required constant funding. 3. Political suicide. Any emperor who tried to restore sound money would have to cut spending dramatically or raise taxes. Either option would likely get him killed. In a time of chronic instability, survival meant keeping enough people happy. 4. The addiction. Debasement was like a drug. It provided short-term relief from spending crises. Each emperor found it easier to debase a little more rather than face the fundamental problems. The social consequences, but beyond the economics, the monetary collapse destroyed Roman society. The middle class vanished. Merchants, artisans, small landowners, people who saved money, saw their wealth evaporate. You can't have a middle class when savings become worthless overnight. The rich got richer. The wealthy owned land, precious metals, and real assets. Inflation hurt them less. The gap between rich and poor became a chasm. Trust collapsed. When money fails, trust fails. People stopped trusting the government. They stopped trusting institutions. Society became more violent, more fragmented, more desperate. Brain drained, talented people fled. Why stay in Rome when your skills could earn stable currency elsewhere? The empire hemorrhaged human capital. Constantine's reform. In 312 AD, Constantine tried to fix things by introducing a new gold coin, the solidus. It worked partially. The solidus became stable because Constantine didn't debase it. But here's the problem. There wasn't enough gold for ordinary transactions. The solidus worked for large transactions between elites, but common people were still stuck with worthless copper coins for daily life. Rome essentially had two economies, one for the rich, stable, and one for everyone else, disaster. By now you might be wondering, did Rome ever learn its lesson? Did they recover? The answer will surprise you, but first we need to connect this to something that matters to you today. Rome never fully recovered. The Western Empire limped along until 476 AD, but it was a shadow of its former self. The Eastern Empire, Byzantium, survived by maintaining the solidus as stable money for centuries. That's not a coincidence. The lessons. What can we learn from Rome's monetary suicide? Lesson 1. You can't print your way to prosperity. Rome essentially printed money by debasing coins. Modern governments print actual money. The temptation is the same. The consequences are the same. Lesson 2. Inflation is theft. When government debases currency, it's stealing from everyone who holds that currency. Romans who saved denarii had their life savings destroyed. It wasn't taxation, it was confiscation through inflation. Lesson 3. Trust takes decades to build, moments to destroy. Once Romans stopped trusting their money, rebuilding that trust took centuries. Some empires never managed it. Lesson 4. The rich survive, the middle class dies. Inflation always hits the middle class hardest. The poor have nothing to lose. The rich have protected assets. The middle class has savings that evaporate. Lesson 5. There's no easy way out. Rome kept looking for shortcuts. Price controls, new coins, edicts. None of it worked. The only solution was the hard one. Stable money, sustainable spending, and time. The modern parallels. Now, I'm not saying we're Rome, but the temptations are eerily similar. Government debt at unprecedented levels, pressure to fund programs without raising taxes, central banks creating money to solve crises, growing inequality between asset owners and wage earners, declining trust in institutions. The Weimar Republic debased their currency, wheelbarrows of cash for a loaf of bread. Zimbabwe did it, $1 trillion notes that couldn't buy dinner. Venezuela did it. Bolivars became cheaper than the paper they were printed on. It's not ancient history. It's a recurring human temptation when governments want to spend more than they have. Rome's collapse wasn't inevitable. It was a choice. Thousands of small choices by emperors who chose short-term survival over long-term stability. They had the greatest empire the world had ever seen, an economy that spanned continents, a currency trusted everywhere, and they destroyed it, coin by coin, decision by decision. The fall of Rome teaches us that empires don't collapse overnight. They erode, they decline, they make compromises that seem reasonable at the time. And by the time people realize what's happening, it's too late. The question isn't whether we remember Rome's mistakes. The question is whether we're repeating them right now. Pause. Thanks for watching. If this opened your eyes to how fragile our economic systems really are, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And let me know in the comments. Do you see parallels to today, or am I overthinking history? Until next time, remember, sound money isn't just about coins. It's about trust. And trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair.